Hello, everybody. This is Paul. Thank you for watching. We can continue with our daily Bible reading. So praise Yah that we have this wonderful opportunity to read the scriptures live every single day. And thank you for joining me here. We're going to open up in prayer, and then we're going to read 1 Chronicles chapter 15, if you want to turn there. So we'll start now with the Shema. This is found in Deuteronomy 6:4-9, and we like to read it before we do our Bible readings. Shema Yisrael, Yahweh Eloheinu, Yahweh Echad, Baruch Shem Kivo, Mahuto, Leolam Vaed. Hear, O Israel, Yahweh is our Elohim, Yahweh is one. And you shall love Yahweh with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And have these words which I command you this day be upon your heart. And you shall teach them diligently to your children, and speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you retire and when you arise. And you shall bind them for a sign upon your hand, and let them be frontlets between your eyes. And you shall write them on the doorpost of your house and upon your gates. Hallelujah. All right. So we continue here in 1 Chronicles chapter 15 as we read here. Verse 1. Now David built several buildings for himself in the city of David. He also prepared a place for the Ark of Yahweh and set up a special tent for it. Now, as we see here, continuing from the last chapter, David's palace and his family, and David accepting the role that Yahweh had planned for him of being king of all Israel, and them desiring for a place to move the ark correctly and have a place for the ark. Verse 2 says, Then he commanded no one except the Levites may carry the ark. Yahweh has chosen them to carry the ark of Yahweh and to serve him forever. And we have to understand that the ark, this was a serious task. Only the Levites were allowed to carry it, and it was over 1,500 pounds. And they gave the specific instructions of not just how to carry it, but who to carry it, and so on. Verse 3 says, David summoned all Israel to Jerusalem to bring the ark of Yahweh to the place he prepared for it. The number of descendants of Aaron, the priest, and the Levites who were called together. From the clan of Kohath, 120 with Uriel as their leader. From the clan of Merari, 220 with Asaiah as the leader. Verse 7, from the clan of Gershon, 130 with Joel as their leader. From the descendants of Elizaphan, 200 with Shemaiah as their leader. From the descendants of Hebron, 80 with Uriel as their leader. And from the descendants of Uriel, 112 with Amminadab as their leader. Verse 11, Then David summoned the priests Zadok and Abiathar and these Levite leaders, Uriel, Asaiah, Joel, Shemaiah, Eli, and Amminadab. Verse 12, he said to them, You are the leaders of the Levite families. You must purify yourselves and all your fellow Levites, so you can bring the ark of Yahweh to Israel, to the place I have prepared for it. The note here says the priests purified themselves so they would be prepared to carry the ark. To purify literally means to separate, to set apart for sacred purposes, to concentrate. The priests symbolically separated themselves from sin and evil. This was done by washing themselves and their clothing in a special ceremony found in Numbers 8, verses 5 and 8. While we are not required to carry such ceremonies today, we can purify ourselves by reading Yahweh's word, thoughtfully applying it to our lives, and preparing our hearts to participate in worship through anticipation, self-examination, and meditation. Just as we set apart time for worship, we also set apart time to be in Yahweh's presence. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Verse 13 reads here, Because you Levites did not carry the ark, the first time, the anger of Yahweh burst out against us. We failed to ask Yahweh how to move it properly. It says here, the first time refers to the incident recorded in chapter 13, verse 8 and 11, and 2 Samuel 6, 1 to 11. The ark was being brought back to Israel on an ox cart. The oxen stumbled. Uzziah tried to steady the ark with his hand and was killed instantly for touching it. The mistake was not David's desire to move the ark, but his method for its return. David either ignored or was unaware of the specific instructions in Yahweh's law about how the ark was to be moved. Obviously, he had discovered his mistakes and was now preparing it to correct it. This incident was a divine object lesson to all Israel that Yahweh governed the king and not the other way around. If David had been allowed to handle the ark carelessly, what would that have said to the people about their faith? Hallelujah. What a good word that is. Verse 14 says, so the priests and Levites purified themselves in order to bring the ark of the covenant of Yahweh of Israel to Jerusalem. Verse 15, then the Levites carried the ark on their shoulders with its carrying poles, just as Yahweh had instructed. Just as Yahweh had instructed. When David's first attempt to move the ark failed, he learned an important lesson. When Yahweh gives specific instructions, it is wise to follow them precisely. This time, David saw that the Levites carried the ark. We may not fully understand the reason behind Yahweh's instructions, but we do know that his wisdom is complete and his judgment is infallible. The way to know Yahweh's instructions is to know his word. But just as children do not understand the reasons for all their parents' instructions until they are older, we may not understand Yahweh's reasons in this life. It is far better to obey Yahweh and then discover the reason. We are never free to disobey Yahweh just because we don't understand. What an important lesson that is. Verse 16 says, David also ordered the Levite leaders to appoint a choir of Levites who were singers and musicians to sing joyful songs, to accompany the harps, lyres, and cymbals. So the Levites appointed Herman, son of Joel, with his fellow Levites, Asaph, son of Barika, and Elthan, son of Kudisha, from the clan of Merari. The following men were chosen as their assistants: Zechariah, Jaziel, Jemereth, Jeniel, Uni, Eli, Beni, Messiah, Mathadat, Elihu, Meneth, and the gatekeepers, Obed, Edom, and Uriel. The musicians, Herman, Aspath, and Ethan, were chosen to sound the bronze cymbals. Zechariah, Aziel, and Shemith, and Junu, and Uni, and Elabab, Manasseh, and Merari were chosen to play the harps, and Mathael, Elihu, Miniah, Obed, Edom, Uriel, and Asaiah were chosen to play the lyres. Kohath, the head Levite, was chosen as a choir leader because of his skill. Verse 25 or 23. Berkadar and Elkim were chosen to guard the ark. Samuel, Shophath, Nathaniel, Amazi, Sariah, Beniah, and Eleazar, all of whom were priests, were chosen to blow the trumpets as they marched in front of the ark of Yahweh. Obed, Edom, and Janel were chosen to guard the ark. It says here, the great musical procession was designed as a worthy accomplishment to the great occasion of heightened and excitement elevated people's hearts and minds and focused their attention on the event. It also helps seal their memory for years to come. Beginning any task by praising our Creator can inspire us to give him our best. Develop the practice of giving praise to Yahweh, and you will experience great joy and strength to face anything. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Moving the ark to Jerusalem in verse 25, it says, Then David and the elders of Israel and the generals of the army went to the house of Obed-Edom to bring the ark of Yahweh's covenant up to Jerusalem with great celebration. And because Yahweh was clearly helping the Levites as they carried the ark of Yahweh's covenant, they sacrificed 7 bulls and 7 rams. David was dressed in a robe of fine linen, as were all the Levites who carried the ark, and all their singers and Kohath of the choir leader. David also wearing a priestly garment. Verse 28, so all Israel brought up the ark of the Yahweh's covenant with shouts of joy, blowing of ram's horns and trumpets, the crashing of cymbals and loud playing on harps and lyres. And then verse 29, but as the ark of Yahweh's covenant entered the city of David, Michal, the daughter of Saul, looked down from her window. When she saw King David skipping about and laughing with joy, she was filled with contempt for him. The note here said David was willing to look foolish in the eyes of some people in order to express his thankfulness. Yahweh fully and honestly, in contrast, David was willing to look foolish in the eyes of some people in order to express thankfulness to Yahweh, fully and honestly. In contrast, Michal was disgusted by his undignified actions as she could not rejoice in the ark's return to Jerusalem. Worship has so deteriorated under the reign of our father Saul that it has become stilled and ritualistic. Michal could have accepted David as a military conqueror and king, but she could not accept his free, spontaneous expression of praise to Yahweh. Some devoted people may look foolish to us in their heartfelt expressions of worship, but we must accept them. In the same way, we should not be afraid to worship Yahweh with whatever expressions seem appropriate. Hallelujah. That is our reading for today, and we're going to look more into this tomorrow and see David's song of praise Yah. And thank you, everybody, for joining us today for our reading. Have a blessed day out there today. Yahweh be with you all, and keep reading your word. And shalom, shalom.